The Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, ratified in 1791 as part of the Bill of Rights, reads, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed." This amendment has sparked intense debate over its scope, especially around the right to bear arms for individual self-defense versus collective security through a militia. This is a full breakdown of its key components and how they have been interpreted over time. 1. Historical context and purpose. The Second Amendment was written at a time when the United States had no standing army, and local militias played a crucial role in defense. This language reflects the founders' belief in the need for an armed citizenry to check potential tyranny and to maintain security. 2. Key phrases in the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia. The amendment begins by mentioning a well-regulated militia, which suggests a collective approach to national defense and order, the right of the people. This phrase, seen in other amendments, typically refers to individual rights, not just collective or state rights. To keep and bear arms. The phrase implies ownership to keep and carrying or using to bear weapons. Though the types and purposes of these arms are not defined, shall not be infringed. This is a strong prohibition on interference. Courts have interpreted what constitutes infringement differently over time.
3. Interpretations and key court cases. U.S. v. Miller, 1939. The Supreme Court ruled that the Second Amendment does not protect the right to own all types of firearms, particularly those not deemed necessary for a well-regulated militia. This case upheld federal regulations on certain firearms. District of Columbia v. Heller, 2008. In this landmark decision, the Supreme Court recognized an individual's right to possess firearms unconnected to militia service for traditionally lawful purposes, like self-defense at home. McDonald v. City of Chicago, 2010. This ruling extended the Second Amendment to apply to state and local governments, not just the federal government, by incorporating it under the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause.
4. Federal versus state regulations. After Heller and McDonald, it's clear that individuals have a fundamental right to keep and bear arms for self-defense, particularly in their homes. However, the Supreme Court acknowledged that this right is not unlimited, allowing for certain reasonable restrictions. 5. Restrictions. States have been able to impose certain regulations on firearms if they don't infringe on the core right established in Heller and McDonald. Common restrictions upheld by courts include background checks. States can require background checks for firearm purchasers to prevent access by individuals with certain criminal convictions or mental health issues. Licensing and permits. Many states require permits for concealed or open carry, and some have more stringent processes than others. Restrictions on specific types of firearms. Some states ban or restrict certain types of weapons, such as fully automatic firearms, assault weapons, and high-capacity magazines. Gun-free zones. States can designate certain areas, like schools and government buildings, as gun-free zones where carrying firearms is prohibited. Waiting periods. Some states impose waiting periods for firearm purchases to prevent impulsive acts of violence. Red flag laws. These laws allow law enforcement or family members to petition courts to temporarily remove firearms from individuals deemed a threat to themselves or others. These restrictions vary widely across states and are often the subject of legal challenges to determine whether they unduly infringe on Second Amendment rights.
6. Ongoing legal questions. Courts continue to wrestle with questions about the types of firearms that can be regulated, the extent of concealed carry rights outside the home, and how new gun control measures fit within the Heller and McDonald framework. There is also ongoing debate about the limits of state and federal power to restrict dangerous and unusual weapons, the boundaries of public safety measures, and the balance between individual rights and collective security. In summary, while the Second Amendment guarantees a fundamental right to bear arms, states can impose specific restrictions, especially when tied to public safety. The extent of these limitations is often tested in courts, and future rulings may further refine what restrictions are permissible.